You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Supplemental. Star Trek Prodigy composer, Nami Melumad.
Welcome everyone to a very special episode of Mission Log Prodigy. Unfortunately, Ashley couldn't join me for this interview. However, I promise you that I'm going to bring her energy because there's somebody that I have here in the studio with us, as you can see on camera, who is bringing me a lot of that same Ashley V. Robinson energy. I would like to welcome our very special guest star for this episode, Nami Melumad. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, you did. Well done. Yes.
I practiced at least once before we started recording.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited to talk with you today.
Absolutely. So as our listeners can see, as our viewers can see, because this is both coming out on regular audio and on the YouTube channel, you're in your workspace right now.
Yes, I am in my current workspace. I'm actually moving studios in a few days.
Okay, so I got you at just the right time.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited about it. Yeah, it's new chapter.
Are you currently working from the studio as you record and as you produce, or do you actually go back into the office, quote unquote, office now to record?
If you're talking about like recording the orchestra, then we actually do that remotely. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let me back this up a little bit because there are a couple series of questions that I think that will help you kind of like get into the headspace of like this whole interview. And the very first question, and I promised you before we started recording that there won't be any really pointed questions, but this is a kind of a specific question. Were you a Star Trek fan before you were hired to work on Prodigy?
Yes.
Okay. So where does your Star Trek fandom come from? When did you start?
Well, it actually starts from the music of Star Trek. Because when I was a kid, I grew up in Israel, and we had like I think there was TNG at the time where I kind of was a 90s. I was a 90s kid, so it would play in the background, but I didn't really quite understand it, because it was in English, and yes, there was subtitles, but like I was a kid, and I still was very fast. I couldn't really understand what's going on there. There were like people in costumes. I'm like, okay, sure. So I didn't really connect. But then later on, I've heard the themes from Alexander Garage and Jerry Goldsmith for the films, and then Michael Giacchino's track from 2009. And I was like, wow, like so basically my way into the franchise came from music because I was a very big film music fan, from very early on. So I was attracted to like that kind of, amazing world that allows that kind of music. So that was pretty cool. And then I actually started, I actually went by order. So I watched the original series and then TNG, I think it was by order of production. So, and then actually Voyager and then DS9. And even though I think it was the other way around.
Sacrilege. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Then Enterprise and Enterprise and then Disco and Picard and Lower Decks and Prodigy.
Okay. So
actually, I tried the animated series. I still have to. I might go back to it at some point.
I'll get you there. Everyone returns to the animated series sooner or later, right?
Yeah, I have to give it another shot. Yeah.
So with Star Trek in the background, what your parents, were they fans of the show? And that's why
not really. I think it was just generally,
generally
TV,
on. Yeah,
generally TV. Like it wasn't, nobody was a big fan of it in my household. Like, yeah. So it's pretty unclear.
So overall, though, but with not just with Star Trek, but say other shows that were on the air or with movies, your career started with your love for orchestral cinematic music. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that's very accurate. Like that's why I got into it. Like I was such a huge fan of the big orchestral sound, like the bigger scores. John Williams' stuff, like Star Wars, but actually even Home Alone, like that score. When I watched that film like numerous times as a kid, like the first one, the second one, that those two films that had the John Williams score, and that was like it's still singable, it's memorable, it has everything in it's so emotional. It was those kind of films, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings.
Howard Shore, of course.
Howard Shore, yeah. He's the one to blame.
Well, I love how you bring that up, because like with John Williams, I'd say James Horner, Howard Shore, all of these composers compose in such a way where it's almost like if you're familiar with the Matt Groening theory of you should be able to identify characters based on their shapes and silhouettes. I believe the way that you phrased things in Prodigy, and probably throughout the course of all of your work, in order for you to understand the characters, you have to phrase the characters in a certain musical way. Say, let's use Howard Shore, for example. The Shire is different than the Nazgul is different than Minas Tirith and Gondor.
Yeah, Gondor. Theme is great.
Right.
And Rohan, the Rohan theme is also great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. I mean, you feel
I
like
love
the different,
that.
like Celtic and Roman, like all these different musical phrasing to color the palette of certain cultures. So with Star Trek and with Prodigy, I wanted to talk to you about your just kind of like your methodology of once when you were hired to do Prodigy. Were you hired to do, did the Hageman brothers say, okay, we're going to contract you for an entire season of 20 episodes, half an hour apiece? How do you work through that process of looking through that volume of work? And is that volume of work complete enough for you at the pitch process for you to be able to start creating?
That's a great question, actually. Yes, I think 20 episodes is actually a lot, because you get so much time to work with the characters as they develop from the get-go. And I think that's amazing, because like a lot of shows and a lot of movies, like you don't really have the time, like the time frame is shorter. But if you do have that 20 episode arc, it's actually easier. And especially the show like Prodigy that focuses on like 6 characters, like main characters and Janeway. Sorry, 6? Wait, Chanko?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it right.
And
like,
I consider
it's very early.
I consider the ship a character as well, because you wrote a
I
very
agree.
specific
That's true.
for the Protostar.
Yeah, and that theme comes back like a lot, especially in the back half of the season, which you will see pretty soon. Yeah. No, but it was part of it. So when I read the screenplays, it was very helpful to see like exactly how does it work in terms of the story and the characters and how they grow from each episode and how they mature very slowly, but they do. And so and so that does allow for the whatever theme or motif that you write for them on the pilot to develop throughout. By episode 10, it's going to be slightly different. I mean, it's still going to remind that same motif, but it will sound a little different because they also grew as a crew and as individuals.
It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
if I may interrupt there, because I think that's a really interesting point. So the script and the development process of these 20 episodes was mature enough for you to be able to see the growth of these characters. So when you wrote, did you start at the very beginning? Did you start with Lost and Found and then created the evolution of this musical growth of these characters?
Yeah, I first only got the first 10 screenplays because that was available at the time. It was really early on. This was before the animatics. I think they were just starting to work on them. And so what I did was actually to sketch those themes separately. This was like, I think when we got like the very first animatic of the pilot, that was really early on, and it's very different from what you see today.
Sure.
But so with that, I took that and I could like really sketch the characters, and then I sent it to the brothers, and to Ben, the director. And then we went from there. Like, they're very good with giving feedback. And they're very like good with directions and stuff, which is very important. Like, they know what they want. They know how to get it. So
you get a lot of notes to help craft.
Right. Yeah. I did get a lot of notes on these earlier sketches, actually. But yeah, usually they do have, and it's very helpful because they know their story best. Sure. And sometimes the animatic, which, with music, you work on the animatic. And then you adjust it to the final animation. So a lot of times it's not entirely clear what's going on, and like a lot of times, if something needs to hit on a certain moment, then you sort of, you're aiming for that, but it may change, or it may, it might be not exactly what they meant. So it's very helpful to have that communication. And sometimes there is a back and forth until we get it right. So yeah, and I think they're so good with music, and it's not to be taken for granted, know. So
well, I mean, you've pretty much entered a very well-known, very well-respected, group of alumni and Star Trek composers. I mean, you obviously have Alexander Kurtz, you have Jerry Goldsmith, you have back in the TNG days, you have like Dennis McCarthy, Jay Chataway, now you have, Jeff Russo, now you have Chris Westlake on Lower Decks.
Yeah.
How do you feel about being part of now part of Star Trek history? Is that like, again, that's why I asked you if you are a fan of Star Trek coming into it, like looking back at those moments when you were just like in the background with Star Trek and the music was playing to now, what's the first word that comes to your mind?
I don't know. Miracle.
I love that. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's some sort of, I don't know, destiny. I don't know. It's like, I guess it was meant to be. It was, it was not something I placed in my, like, I did not dare to dream of that. So, I mean, I have a lot of confidence as a composer, and I've always had that, but like, big, those, this is a dream. So right. it was very like kind of, yeah, I still can't believe it. I mean, I'm very lucky, very fortunate.
Now, do you, in your profession, how do you find like an opportunity like this? Does your agent work with you and say there's an opportunity for you to work on Star Trek? And you said, yeah.
Well, yes and no. With other opportunities, it's usually like that. It's like, hey, there's this movie, let's pitch for it, or hey, Netflix called, they want to have a meeting, that kind of stuff. Okay. Which is pretty cool. But with that one, it was actually, I think it was because of the work that I did on the short track in 2019. Then Alex Kurtzman had this great idea where, he basically offered me to do the score, and he offered Michael to do the main theme. So, I think it came from my work on short. So it wasn't like, I didn't expect it, but like, it's not out of the blue completely.
Okay. So it's your work got transitioned into a body of being of professional work out there in the professional space. And then obviously it made an impression on Alex Kurtzman, who was the executive producer and showrunner of this entire prism of Star Trek shows that's coming out.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful he took the chance, because it's not easy. Like it's such a big responsibility. I mean, I can't imagine what he's got so much going on. And yeah, he trusted me with a short, and I did a good job. So.
Have you scored all of the rest? Because we've only been given 5 episodes. We're not going to get the next 5 until January 6th of 22.
Right. We're still working on them.
Oh, okay. So are you still scoring those?
Yeah, we're recording 109 next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this process, is there a lot more fine tuning now, or have they been pretty much intact since you created the compositions for those?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, as I said, like from animatic to animation, it's mainly the fine tuning. It's like you already have the basic material, you already have the list of cues, the scenes that are going to be there. Sometimes it does change. Like I think episode 4 or 5, like there was a big change from the animatic to the animation, and then it's like more, and instead of a conform, it would be like a rewrite or like a very complicated music edit to fit these changes. If they happen after the recording, you do have to edit it and to figure out a solution that would work, and that the audience would know about.
How fast does that usually happen? So there's just a little story here. There's a very famous story when Howard Shore was scoring Return of the King, where Peter Jackson just kept changing and editing and changing and editing to the point where the film was still, quote unquote, technically wet before that Howard Shore could score it. Has there ever been kind of like a panic mode while you're doing this process, or is it just that it's coming eventually?
Thankfully, not with this project. I think it's because it's animation, everything has to be very planned out. Because just producing one frame of animation it's a lot of work. It takes so many people to get that done. So you don't want to spend your resources and your time on things that will not see the light of day. So there's a lot of planning and a lot of yes, there are some last minute changes, but nothing super, super crazy that made me not sleep at night. And yes, there have been other projects where it did happen. So I'm very grateful that this is kind of it feels like that ship is being navigated very well, which is good.
So when, say, the Hagemans broke the news that the next season is coming, the next 20 episodes, one of the things that I've always been interested in with composers, especially composers that work on a large volume of work, how do you not say borrow from yourself with the proliferation of work that you have to create? Do you ever catch yourself saying, no, I've used that theme before? No, I've used that theme before. How do I get past this? Is there a writer's block that happens? What's your process with that?
It does occasionally happen where I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, oh, no, I cannot use that. And sometimes it would be, some theme that I heard from John Williams. And sometimes it would be a Nami theme that I'm like, I can't but with Prodigy, it's because we created such a nice palette of themes and motifs, and there's a main theme of Michael, which is incredible, and then there's the ship's theme, and then there's Jankum's theme. It's kind of easier to develop these into all sorts of variation that would fit the narrative in that specific episode. So I'm actually really excited that I get to broaden that palette, and also there are new characters joining, as we know, as we now know. And maybe there are more characters joining. So you do get to expand, and especially with Trek, they go on a certain planet. That planet can have its own theme, and the whatever aliens that are there can have their own theme. Right. With a show like Star Trek, I'm less worried about I actually find it's more opportunity, to be honest.
Okay. Is there a little bit more freedom and experimentation where you can, not to borrow the phrase, too flippantly, but to boldly go and explore, seek out new music and new ways of phrasing and composing,
new textures,
exactly,
to boldly go, strange new textures, yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean, and especially it doesn't with a word like Star Trek, it doesn't really have to always be orchestral. It could also be synths, synths was used even in the original score, so it's okay. It's part of the genre. It's part of that culture. And yes, I do think that the choice for an orchestra is correct, but it does have its limitations at the end of the day.
Sure. And was it difficult? So when you first started working on Prodigy, were we still in lockdown for COVID?
Yeah. No, actually, no. Okay. When we started recording, it was already after that. It was this year. And also in Europe, we're recording it in Europe. So over there, it was less of a thing, I guess, at that point of time. So like
Okay.
that was okay. Yeah, they were able to be in the studio together. I think most of them wore masks except for the woodwind players and the brass players.
That would be difficult, sure.
Yeah, because we do record everyone in the same room, which I think is more musical, and I think doing 2D versus striping is ultimately getting you the better musical result.
Are you conducting?
I am not conducting because I'm not there.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was like a Zoom conducting session that you would do with them.
I wish that was possible, but it's a little too tricky to do that in real time. And also you need a person who speaks the language of, where we record. I mean, it's either Prague or Budapest. So I don't speak Czech, and I don't speak Hungarian. So, yeah, oftentimes we will, me and my orchestrator, Jeff Krika, we will communicate our notes on Zoom in English, and the conductor will translate it to the rest of the orchestra.
We're just going to have to get you a universal translator. That's just going to solve all the problems.
Oh my God,
right?
that exactly. Yes, thank you. Yeah, but I mean, I wish we could be in the room with them, and just maybe we'll fly out at some point. I hope so.
I'm wondering if, in a way, obviously, it sounds like your preferred method of working would be working live, being able to compose and being able to conduct with a live orchestra. Do you find in any way that because there are so many different layers of translation, that it takes away any of the emotional impact of what you're trying to achieve?
I don't think so, because here's the thing. Music is actually a universal language. Music can be read by a musician in Austria, and it will be read the same as a person in New York or in Israel, because that is a universal language, really. So the emotions that translate from these harmonies, from these chords, from these melodies are the same emotions. And I think all musicians can understand what we're going for with music. So yeah, there haven't been any notes or comments about the actual, what the actual performance is. It's more like, oh, maybe we will add the horn on this line, or it's more like technical stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or like, let's lure this line instead of make it like separate, like staccato or separate.
Okay. I was just wondering if you were going to give notes, say like in this particular scene, because there's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. You, on the Twitter feed on ML Prodigy on Twitter, you responded to one of my posts where you said that in Terra Firma, when Dal and Gwyn were staring at the stars at the back of the ruined Klingon bird of prey, it's one of your more emotional pieces. I cried when I watched that, because who doesn't want to be Dal or Gwyn looking up at the stars and dreaming, like Luke Skywalker looking at the suns, or anyone looking up at the stars and waiting for their comet to appear so they can make that wish upon a star.
Yeah.
Do you find when you're writing, do you ever find yourself lost in the emotion of that moment?
Oh my God, yes, that's terrible. Okay. I'm terrible. I'm a crier. I actually, like this morning, I started. We're working on 109 to get it done, and I get so emotional over that episode. Like half of the episode, I'm like, oh my God. So wow. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to it's just so impactful. Like the story is so great, and the performances of the actors, the voice actors, because at this point, they're just so good. Like, so yeah, that totally does influence my work when I compose and when I edit myself, because a lot of times I do have to do that, like, come back to something and be like, okay, well, now we're looking at it in fresh eyes and we're gonna make it better. So yeah, I think the scene that was most impactful for me to write was when they discovered the ship, actually in episode 1.
That was amazing.
Yeah. And so yeah, there are a few more things like that coming up on the back half. You'll see. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a very specific musical sequence that happens when Rock Talk hits the Delta, and that's the Voyager callback.
Yeah.
How much of that was you? How much of that was the Hageman brothers or Dan? Was that a note that were like, we need to call back Voyager because this is kind of when Janeway starts, to influence the story?
No, we had that conversation like really early on in general about the show, like whether it should or should not have any callbacks. And we couldn't really use the theme, so that was kind of from the get go. We knew that this is not a go with the Nickelodeon. But I told them that, hey, I know the Roger music very, very well. So I knew like how we can sort of remind that. So use the same, of woodwind textures, or
exactly.
use,
right.
Yeah, you use the same ideas, but like not actually touch the music. And so they actually left it for my judgment, like when to do it and how to do it. Yeah. And so, it wasn't discussed particular for that moment, but like it just made sense, when this happens, because it's such a huge moment for the show. And then the same thing when Janeway appears, like so these things are kind of you have to pick your moments.
Right. And so knowing that we're approaching when Janeway appears, knowing that they're on a ship that looks very similar to the Intrepid class ship, which was Voyager.
Yeah.
Using those
and it's
moments.
The Delta Born. I mean, it's the same
exactly,
place.
Exactly. So when you feel all of that is about to crescendo in a certain way, when you're watching it, at least in the animatics, did you say to yourself, "That's the moment"? Like, did it crystallize for you that instantly?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, these animatics are pretty clear. Like I have to say, they're very good at what they do. Mm-hmm. So the emotion is there in the animatic, and so you can tell, like as a composer, when is the right moment to to go bigger, for sure. So it was clear.
How much of your process is guided by just sheer feeling as opposed to technicality?
A lot. Okay. I will say that we do have a temp track, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not great, but like mostly it's great. So you do have some sort of an idea of like what the picture is going for, in terms of like, okay, this should be like an intense action moment, and this should be like a low-key love romantic scene or something. And so a lot of times it's very tricky when you look at that, because sometimes you'll have like a Hans Zimmer cue, like from Wonder Woman or something. Okay. And then you'll have Star Wars all of a sudden, and it's just all over the place. And sometimes you'll have the 2009 track, which I love, but it really throws me off because I'm like, we're totally not there. Mm-hmm. So and we have all sorts of and so sometimes it's very helpful, just to get that understanding. Oh, okay, this is where it's supposed to hit, like, especially if the animatic is not clear in a certain point, but the music is like, okay, this is kind of where it starts, the rhythm or the whatever. So it does help in guiding you, but it can also be very distracting if it's Indiana Jones and you're like, this is too good. Right? Like, how do I beat that?
Put my own, exactly. Yeah, how do I put my own spin on that? Sure.
Yeah, but ultimately it has to be Prodigy. It has to be our music, and I think one of the challenges is to make it ours, and I think we I think it's ours. So
yes, your fingerprints. Sure. Michael Giacchino on the theme, his style is very signature. But your style now, as people are starting to listen to the body of the compositions, as opposed to the credits part of the compositions more and more and more. When you saw, I remember when Amazon and Apple started, advertising the tracks, and even Yahoo Music. So when you saw the album and you saw like the handful of tracks, because it started to, add more tracks as the weeks went on, as the episodes were released, how did you feel? Like, you're saying, this is me. This is like, look at my stuff. It's out there now. Were you just, dancing on the ceiling, as Lionel Richie says?
I do dance a lot, not on the ceiling. I will try that. I wish I could. But yeah, we plan to release I think very early on, we're like, we have to get this music out there. Like that, it needs to, because it could leave on its own too. Mm-hmm. And then I really wanted all the tracks to be in order. So if a viewer watched the episode and then they listen on Spotify or whatever platform, they can really experience that episode again. Because the music, oftentimes with this score, it almost never, it goes very close, like hand by hand with the actual story. So I think it's really cool that, I could, because that's how I felt, growing up and listening to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. I could really experience the film, even if I was in traffic or, driving, going somewhere, and I wasn't watching, but that feeling of watching the story was still with me. The characters were still with me. And I thought it was really fun. I wanted to do the same thing for Prodigy.
Would you feel that I'm going to put you on the spot here? I love doing desert island scenarios. If you're familiar with that game, you have to basically pick and choose, from your heart of hearts. And it may change tomorrow. It may change. Your answers may change in a month from now. But who do you think has influenced your method and your style of work more as a composer? Someone that you really looked up to, say like a John Williams, a James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith, a Howard Shore. Not just from the music alone, but from the way that you have broken down these other people's processes and kind of incorporated them into your own. Who do you think has shaped the way that
the most impact? Michael. For sure. Okay. Michael Giacchino. I mean, and it's not just. I mean, yeah, I grew up listening to his scores as well. It's mainly the Pixar stuff. Sure. But and then tracking it, like, and then we worked together. So I kind of know, I learned a lot from him. So whether it was intentional or not, like, he's influenced me like hugely. Yeah, it's like a lot of times I'd write something and then I'll hear his voice in my head being like, Nami, no. Like, oh, really? Let's start this earlier. Or like, okay. You don't need that, Nami. This is too much. You're working too hard. That you're overthinking it. Like, all sorts of things, mainly about storytelling rather than music. Because the thing I picked up from him the most when we worked on American Pickle was the storytelling element, like how you always have to be with the picture, always, even if you wrote the best thing ever and it's just you need 2 more seconds to get it to work, but there's no 2 more seconds, so you're going to cut those 2 seconds out and you're going to work with the picture. And I think that is one of the most valuable, actually it's the most valuable thing that you can do as a film composer or TV composer. Like, you have to go with the story always. So yeah.
What has there ever been a moment, because as I've always believed that a composer brings more to the creative process with the actual final production than more people realize. If you turn off the sound on a TV or on your headphones and you're just watching something, everything is gone. The emotion's gone. The thrust of what you're watching is gone. There's a huge disconnect emotionally and spiritually with what you're watching. So have you ever had that point where you're like, no, I must have this particular phrase or an entire section remain, as opposed to, no, we really don't have time for it. No, we have to make time for it, because without it, we lose this. Has there ever been that moment where you're like, nope, I have to have this?
Not really. I mean, I do get sometimes like obsessed with a certain thing and then I'm like, we have to do this, but it's not necessarily right. So that's why I mentioned that I do edit myself a lot. Like, I'll come back to something, like I'll write something, for example, I'll let it sit for like a few hours or a couple of days, and I might come back to it to make sure. Like, I watch things over and over and over again, and you always want to watch it in context too. So not just the one scene, because maybe you worked on it so much that you sort of fell in love with your own writing, or sure. That kind of stuff, which could be risky, because and for that it's very important. It's very helpful to actually have the showrunners, like the brothers and Ben, because they can point out exactly the weaker moments, or where it can be pushed, where I can be pushed out of my comfort zone and go further and go boldly. So yeah, it's that's why it's very helpful to have these collaborators who really understand music and storytelling too. So yeah, I guess it does happen, but you can't force music on picture. Like it's always the other way around. Like picture wins always, dialogue always wins. You know, and oftentimes sound effects will also, you know, you also have to be considerate of that. So if there's like a big explosion or something, you know, there's music leading up to it. And oftentimes I'll be out by the time there's an explosion. Or like, I know, you know, I know the thrusters, I know, like, you know, I know to expect certain sounds, even if they're not there now, like when I work on it on the animatic, but I know that they're going to come in post-production. They're going to put some sounds there. So maybe the music should delay in like a second, or, you know, oftentimes the impact of an action on screen is felt just a tiny little after that. Like when you hug someone, you know, you don't instantly get, you know, it takes like, you know, 10 milliseconds until the warmth come out, you know?
Sure.
So it's interesting, but it works really well with this, because I can really anticipate like the sounds. It's, you know, and maybe it's because I know what Star Trek is, so it's kind of, you know. Do
you ever think about using the sound library as or at least the sounds that you know are going to be coming as part to complement your compositions, or is that just serendipitous that it does?
Well, I don't have access to like these sounds. I'm not a sound expert. What I'm saying is like I know that there's going to be a certain. I was almost going to give away like what's happening in episode 7, but I will not.
We're not allowed to do that.
I know. I was about to say it. I'm like, oh God, no. It's so hard.
You got to tape like a post-it on your monitor, like no spoilers ever.
Yeah. No, but okay. Let's say that there is a very, very particular sound that's very familiar with Star Trek world, and you know, I know to anticipate it. You know, I'm you know, sometimes you just want to be respectful of that, because it's a whole world, and they're doing it so well, like Otis and his team, like it's really great, and it complements the score. I think we're vibing very well. So and sometimes you also want to, like, in terms of frequencies and stuff, like even on dialogue, say a character speaks in a certain frequency, you want to be above it or below it, but you don't want to write on top of that dialogue in that same range, because that will create like some sort of a clash, and then the music will be either lowered or out.
In the art world, you know, we call that vibration in the eyes, you know, where two colors they're competing so heavily that it starts making your eyes vibrate, you know, in a way. And I'm sure that auditorily, you know, or sonically, that happens the same way when you have too many frequencies competing for the same space. In Amadeus,
exactly.
What did the emperor say? Too many notes to
oh
Mozart?
my God. Yeah. Oh my God. You know what? That was the note I got always when I grew up. And when I started writing, even in Jerusalem Academy of Music, when I went to undergrad, and here at USC, when I went to grad school, like all my teachers always said, too many notes, too many notes, too many notes. And I feel like I'm still doing that. You know, I still haven't learn how to write less.
Or economically, is that what they're asking for? Like maybe a little bit more economically in the writing?
Yeah. I mean, I had a really great teacher, the late Jack Smalley. And one time I played a practice, like, I had to score a scene for his lesson. And I played it for him, and the computer, the sound was very, it was very low volume. And I was like, oh, we finished playing it. And I was like, oh, should we listen to it with like full volume? And he's like, no, all the elements that I should have heard, I heard. Everything else, I guess, is not, you don't need it. Like, that was good advice,
Yeah, louder doesn't necessarily make it better, I guess. But what he meant is like all the important stuff, the key elements, the important things were already there. So, whatever elements that he didn't hear, I guess were not that important for the music. And so maybe I didn't have to put them in. Oh, I see. Oh, and this
maybe it was too much. So it was sort of screening out all the stuff that didn't need to be there anyway.
So this is the same note that you got from Michael saying like, you don't have to work as hard to achieve the same goal in a similar sense.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, he didn't exactly say it like that, but yes, that the idea is like, this is, let it be, let the story be.
Is that something that you think you're going to focus on maybe a little bit more, say in the next season, as a part of personal growth that helps serve the story?
Yes and no. I don't know. I mean, I think our score does work pretty well the way it is, and I don't want to like change the vibe of it completely. I mean, but it is something that I think will help me be more efficient in my workflow too. So okay. that would be a good thing. I mean, it's not a really creative note. It's more like a technical note for me.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I can tell by your personality. It's so effervescent, so bubbly. And I feel that, that's becoming like part of your music. I can understand that. Like you want to excite the listener and have them engaged. When you're not working on Prodigy, of course, you're a working composer in the business. So there are other projects that you're probably working on. Is there anything that you would like to talk about, with other works aside from what you're doing with Prodigy or that you're allowed to talk about?
There's one project I wish I could talk about, but I can't. But I mean, at one point. But I just finished scoring a show for Netflix, actually, that's coming out in January 28th, I think. It's called The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. And it's a comedy.
This is with Kristen Bell, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's a dark comedy, and very, very dark. Mm-hmm. So it was a very, very different score from Star Trek Prodigy. But I really love doing that.
To change hats so quickly?
No, I actually enjoy that because, it's just so different that there's no room for, like, as you said, like sometimes you have that mix up. If projects are very similar to one another, then you do catch yourself being like, oh, wait, this is from Prodigy. But that show is just so out there. Oh. I can't wait for you to see it. It's a very different score, very dark okay. One.
All right. Well, I mean, even say, let's take John Williams, for example, from Star Wars to Superman to Jaws, and then going all the way to Catch Me If You Can, you still hear certain like musical thematic, fingerprints, from a John Williams
signature.
So I'm going to listen for your signature fingerprints, in this, because every composer has it, whether they like it or not. I think it's just part of their soul that they want to imprint on the work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it kind of happens without you really,
exactly.
even initiating it. And it's interesting because a lot of people, when you grow up as a composer and you're looking for advice from other people, a lot of people say, oh, you have to look for your voice and all of that stuff. And like, yes, to a certain degree, because at some point it will just find you. Like at some point it will just, after you work on so many things, you will find yourself, doing certain things and people will be like, oh, this is, that person's composition. Like it will become that naturally with your growth as a composer. True. So, sometimes you don't want to like force it and be like, oh, I don't have my voice. Like you will get there. Everyone does. Like eventually it does happen. So
sure. And it becomes a little bit more of like an overall compliment to the work as opposed to being like derivative, for people are saying like, oh, they're just borrowing from themselves. Like, no, this is this person's signature.
Well, Mozart borrowed from himself a lot.
A lot.
a lot. Yeah. Yes.
Which is why there are too many notes. One last question for you before we let you go, because we know you're very busy. If there is one character that you can identify with, or you feel like you lean towards the most writing for characters in Prodigy, who would it be?
Probably Gwen.
Okay.
I loved her from the very beginning, like from the the screenplay of the pilot. Because she goes, I mean, for me, I think she goes through the biggest journey of them all. And she goes through the biggest change, and she learns so much about the world outside her bubble where she grew up. And just the way that she grows is the way that I that's kind of how I feel too. Cause like, you start in your more narrow perspective, and then you just it sometimes you're just I mean, there's so much to learn. There's so much to like, yeah. And I connect with her. Like I it's there's something there, and she's just so in it, but like she learns who she is. It's wonderful, really.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you're saying, I wish I could tell you what I've seen so far.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. I
can hear that in the back of your voice. I know.
I wish. Yeah, but just the way, and also like she's got this like ability to speak with she learned all these languages. Mm-hmm. So she always kind of wanted that communication with the rest of the world. She just needed that push.
Exactly.
So, I sometimes feel like that, like I just need the push.
And you've learned all these languages as well in the form of music.
Yeah, that's true. And also I had to learn English. So
and literal languages. Nami, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this interview. You were absolutely lovely. And I love the energy that you brought. How can our listeners stay in touch with you and find you across social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Nami Composer, and I'm on Instagram, Nami Composer.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you. And these were like such great questions. Really, I've never been asked all like most of those. So yeah, well done.
Well, this is what we do here on Mission Log Prodigy, part of the Roddenberry Podcast Network. No, I do appreciate it. You've been absolutely lovely. I can't wait to have you on again. We'll be able to continue some of these conversations after we've seen probably more, at least the next 5, if not the next 15. And then we'll come back to some of these moments that you couldn't talk about. And then we can like flesh out the rest of your stories. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I want to make my apologies for my lovely co-hosts and my sister, Ashley V. Robinson, for not being able to coordinate with her to have her as part of this interview. We promise to be better at just scheduling things so that both of us can be on at the same time in future interviews such as this. But we both will be back on January 6th, 2022, watching Star Trek Prodigy and then creating our next podcast for the channel. So please stay in touch with us here on YouTube or follow us on your podcast catcher of choice. You can always follow us here on YouTube at Roddenberry Entertainment Podcasts. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button for this list for Star Trek Prodigy so that you are notified when new shows come up, just like this one. But everyone, be safe out there. Stay safe, stay healthy. And we look forward to bringing you all of these new shows for Star Trek Prodigy in the interim during this break, and then for next year in January 2022. So until next time, thanks everyone for watching, and we're looking forward to more Star Trek Prodigy.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.